everybody doing tonight? Everyone having a great FanX? I had a fucking moment before that, you know, I spend all day meeting people who say wonderful things to me and get emotional sometimes. Some people cry and whatnot, and I'm like, I know Tusk was bad, but I'm sorry. But they get emotional and like cry and stuff like that, and I'm always like holding their hands like, it's okay, it's very flattering. I had a moment like that today. Jay knows Steve Burns from Blue's Clues. And, you know, I raised my kid on Blue's Clues. Like, fucking, I watched every episode with her when she was a kid. Started for her, and then I was like, fuck off, I like this show, you know? Because I could figure shit out. Like, before Blue, I felt very smart. So, you know, Jay worked on a movie with Steve. I didn't even know this. And so he came by and we took a picture. And I was legitimately starstruck. To the point where I couldn't form sentences. I was like, you, TV man, good. And I took a picture with him, and as soon as he left, I don't mind telling you, I started fucking crying, man. It's like, that was fucking Steve. I spent so much quality time with him and shit. We found so many things together. It's really fucking nice. So, you know, it was nice to be on the other end of the table, as it were. I got emotional in front of somebody else, and he was like, it's okay. And I'm like, it's not! It was awesome. Had a lovely time thus far today, man. It's really great being here. I come up to Utah quite a bit, but generally I, you know, kind of pass through Salt Lake City and head on up to Park City and stuff. So it's been nice to actually hang out in the city today for a little bit, and my God, it's fucking clean. You can eat food off the streets. It's incredible fucking here. Okay, we got time for Q&A, and that's what we're gonna be oh, good Lord. It's always that time where you just want to find out how to say certain words.
Questions are right here.
Like cock smoker. Oh my God, it is exactly what you thought it would be. Fascinating. Okay, we got microphone. I guess you're the beginning of the Q&A. It begins here. What's your name, Captain?
My name is Jeff.
Jeff, and we'll give it up for Jeff. He's first.
My question is about Clerks 3. Saw it in theaters last weekend.
Did you go? Fucking A. How many people saw Clerks 3 already? Thank you. Oh my God, that's a surprising amount. Thank you. It means a lot.
I'm glad there's a lot of people who've seen it because I don't want it to be a spoiler, so I'm going to ask my question kind of in a code.
Thank you.
There's a scene though where they're talking about time spent with celebrities in heaven.
Yes.
Who do you want to meet in heaven? That's the code.
Who would I want to fuck in heaven? I always thought Jesus was pretty hot, you know? I say start at the top, man. Establish dominance, and then you get everybody. Who would I want to have sex with in heaven? And they have to be historical, like people have to know them and shit. I can't be like, my grandma's friend. Which would be very awkward for my grandma. Let me see. I mean, I don't know, is this... I would legit was going to say Carrie Fisher. Yeah! But I was thinking, like, is that wrong to... Well, you say, but I'm fucking married, man. Like, my wife would be like, I heard you wanted to fuck Carrie Fisher in heaven, you dick. But I loved Carrie when I was a kid. I mean, I loved Carrie as an adult. I got to work with her and hang out with her and shit. She was beautiful. But I loved Carrie Fisher when I was a kid, man. She was my crush. And so I had like posters, Star Wars posters, Empire Strikes Back posters, but they were very Carrie Fisher centric, very Princess Leia centric. I had a framed photo that I had written to her, and you know, I'm a big fan, and they sent me a signed photograph that galactically yours, Carrie Fisher. I was like, oh my God. And then like a month later, I was like, I want another one. I pushed my luck and I sent another letter, and I got the exact same photo with the exact same signature. I was like, oh. So, I met, when I met Carrie and worked with her on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I told her, I was just like, when I was a kid, like I had posters of just you exclusively, like on my wall, which was weird because I was a young boy, but like not that weird because I also had, Star Wars sheets, and I'd hate to tell you what I did with those, And she was like, Christ, I hear this all the time. Why can't you boys keep your cum to yourself? She was so fucking funny, man, and so dirty as well. She was like my kind of person. When we tried to get her into Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, we were offering the scale salary across the board. So everybody that was in the movie that wasn't Jay, like, all the cameos and shit, they got like scale, like a minimum wage in the movies or something like that. So we reached out to Carrie about being in the flick, and her agent said she'll be in the movie, but she doesn't want to get paid. She wants the production to buy her this set of antique beaver chairs that she's had her eye on for 6 months. And so we were like, all right, like I guess we were like, she didn't want to pay the taxes or whatever the fuck, like whatever. She didn't want the money to be in the movie, she just wanted us to give her these fucking chairs that she wanted to buy. So we bought the fucking chairs. She shows up on the movie on the first day, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a huge fan and shit like that. She's like, thank you. I said, I think it's really kooky that like we had to buy you a pair of beaver chairs instead of like you just taking a salary. What's that all about? And she's like, I thought the idea of me buying beaver chairs for this movie was appropriate. And I fucking loved her so much, but Jason had a completely different experience. Jason and I are in the scene with her and shit. But Jason, was just macking on her the whole fucking time. Just constantly just like, oh, you know what I would do to you, princess? I'm a little big for a stormtrooper, shit like that. Just going like on and on. And, she was like tolerating. She's like, yes, I'm sure you would use your blaster and your lightsaber, all this shit. And then this was going on for about 4 hours into the day. And then I was we were doing Carrie's coverage, so it's a single, and it's a process trailer, so we're dragging this car. They're both in the car. When I'm in the scene, when it's a 3-shot, Silent Bob is in the car, but since I'm not in the shot, director Kevin Smith is sitting on the process trailer watching the monitor with headphones on. So, like I said, it's all about fucking Carrie's performance and shit. This camera's on her. So we did a take, and then we have to go back to base camp to like reset the camera so it's going to be on Jay. And so the whole ride back, the two of them are sitting in the car talking, and I've got headphones on so I can hear the whole fucking thing, and I can see them right in front of me because they're right there in the car. And so Jason does his thing yet again, where he's just like, oh man, you know what I'd do to you, man? Fucking like, there's no moon and shit like that. And Carrie out of nowhere, and mind you, she's dressed like a fucking nun, right? Like she is in the movie. Out of nowhere goes, you better stop saying that shit. And Jay was like fucking thunderstruck. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt your feelings? Did I offend you? And she goes, no. The problem is young people like you say all these things about how they want to fuck Princess Leia, and you don't follow through. I'm sitting in the fucking process trailer, my headphones are going, this is the most amazing Star Wars outtake ever. And Jason was cowed. He's like, I'm really sorry. She goes, don't be sorry, just don't do it. And this is my favorite thing she fucking said. She goes, God, you're just like Affleck. So that meant somewhere in the streams of time, Affleck was like, there ain't no moon and shit like that. She went the same fucking thing that she had to put up with Jay. It's adorable. So, I don't know if I'd have sex with her in heaven, but I'd definitely find her out. I'd go seek her out and catch up and be like, remember that fucking time you said that shit to Jay? Then she might be having sex with Jay in heaven. All right, where are we going next? What's your name, Captain? Yes.
So my
no, but really, what's your fucking name, Captain? I know you're playing a role and shit, but like, what's your name?
It's Bob.
Bob? And we'll give it up for Bob. He's next. I mean, you're already off the fucking rails, not Bob, because you're talking. So you could just tell me your name and shit.
Bob.
Got it.
So thanks for Clerks 3.
You dug it?
I loved it. It was a masterpiece.
Thank you. Oh my God, fucking that's too big a word, but thank you. Very nice.
But what was your least favorite movie to direct?
That I ever made? Let me see. Can I go through them all? I'll go through all of them. No, I fucking love Tusk. Don't shout out my answers. Let me figure this out for myself. All right, we start with Clerks. I fucking love Clerks. It gave me everything and stuff. I'm standing here today because of Clerks. Clerks is a word that I've not said every single day for the last nearly 30 years. At some point in my life, the word Clerks comes out of my life at some point in every fucking day. So I love that movie. Obviously, it's not that. Mallrats, like, we took a hit when it came out. Thanks. Where the fuck were you when it came out? When it came out, people shit on it and whatnot, but fucking it aged incredibly well. 10 years later, it became like a classic, a cult classic. And it's the movie that people talk to me about the most in this world. When they come up to me, not Clerks, not fucking Chasing Amy, not Dogma, not certainly not Yoga Hosers. They bring up fucking Mallrats, like Mallrats was the one. That's how I found you and shit like that. So it's not Mallrats. Chasing Amy, no, it's not that. I liked making that movie and shit. That's used to be my umbrella film. The movie that, like, no matter what happened, I had that. So people are like, ew, he sucks now. They're like, well, at least he made Chasing Amy. But then that changed, dynamic shifted when the culture kind of shifted and stuff. And there's a whole generation of kids that, like, see that movie as incredibly offensive and whatnot. Which is so wild to me, because I'm like, oh my God, we were like an insanely progressive movie in 1997, but that was 1997. I still love that movie though, so it's not that one. Dogma, come on, that I love that movie, so it's definitely not that. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was incredible fun to make. After that was Jersey Girl. Let's take a pause. Just take a pause and examine. Is it Jersey Girl? No, I enjoyed making Jersey Girl for a number of reasons. Number one, I'm a huge Ben Affleck fan, so I love hanging out with him, making movies with him and stuff. But lest we forget, George Carlin is in that movie. So that was honestly like an unexpected gift that George gave me when he left this world. When George passed away, his passing legitimized Jersey Girl for a bunch of people who were like, well, George Carlin's in that movie, so it can't suck anymore. So when he passed, I was like, thank you, George, thank you so much. So it ain't Jersey Girl. After Jersey Girl, we did Clerks 2. I fucking love that movie, it's not that. After Clerks 2, we did Zack and Mary Make a Porno. Apparently that movie worked. After Zack and Mary Make a Porno, we made Cop Out. Let's take a pause. Let me think about it. It was a tough process historically. I've talked about it. Bruce and I have butted heads and stuff. But that being said, because of the relationship that Bruce and I had, the volatile relationship on set, the rest of the cast and crew coalesced into this kind of protective bubble around me. And just like were fucking constantly showering me with affection to make up for the affection I wasn't getting from Dad, you know what I'm saying? Like, so honestly, like as much as I want to say like, oh, Cop Out, like it was actually a wonderful shoot thanks to everybody else and stuff. So it's not Cop Out. And then then I did Red State. I fucking love Red State. Then I took 3 years off and I was like, I'm not making movies anymore. And then we made a podcast about a guy and a walrus, and so we made Tusk. I love Tusk, so much so that fucking in 2 years, it's the 10-year anniversary of Tusk, we're making a sequel called Tusks. And it's not just an S, it's a $sign at the end of it. Because there's an old story about Jim Cameron when he was pitching Aliens to 20th Century Fox. He didn't make Alien, that was Ridley Scott. But he went in to pitch Aliens and shit, and the execs were sitting there. He went into the chalkboard, he wrote Alien on it, and they were like, huh? And they wrote an S after, and they were like, ah. And he put 2 lines for the S, they were like, ah. So we're making Tusks with a $sign at the end of it. It is an homage to Jim Cameron. So it ain't Tusk. After Tusk, I did Yoga Hosers. Let's take a pause. Yoga Hosers has aged well for 3 people in the audience. I like that. My dream for that movie is that, it's starting to come true, is that like it would just be happened across by tween girls one day going across cable and be like, what is this? And feel like the movie was made for them. And I've seen a few people like at cons who've told me that story, like my daughter loved your movie. And I'm like, oh my God, why would you show her Clerks 3? It's depressing. They'll grab that when Yoga was like, oh my God, why would you subject a child to that? So it ain't, I mean, you would think it'd be Yoga Hosers because that was the one I took the most shit for. But I made that movie with my kid. Like, you know, I don't give a fuck. The whole world could be like, you're an asshole. I spent a summer with my kid making pretend. It was beautiful and stuff. So it ain't that. After we did Yoga Hosers was Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. And I fucking dearly love that movie. And after Reboot was Clerks 3. I don't hate any of them, man. Like fucking, number one, it's like you're breathing rarefied air if what you do for a living is like make pretend as an adult. So there's no way I could ever be like, ugh, that fucking movie is the worst. It's like, oh my God, that movie, any movie, even my worst movie, and the worst experience that I had not making the movie, but because of how people reacted to the movie or whatever, is still better than fucking any job I ever had in my fucking life, man. Because even if my feelings are hurt, I can dry my eyes on all the money they shower on. So at the end of the day, I love them all, man. I mean, the problem is I love them all and the critics don't. Like, I wish they saw it the way I did, but you know, everyone has their opinions and stuff. But I can't think of one that I don't like. I skipped Red State. And I fucking love Red State. That's the least Kevin Smith movie ever made. If you take my name off it, you wouldn't even fucking know I directed that movie. And that's one of my proudest accomplishments as a director, is to make a movie that doesn't seem like the kind of movie I would ever make. So it would never be Red State. Yeah, I love them all. I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. It's gross. All right, we going here. What's your name, Kevin?
What's up, man? Matt.
What is it?
Matt.
Matt, give it up for Matt. Matt.
Jay actually told us the story of him and Carrie frolicking through the field earlier during that same shoot, so that was pretty good to get the other side.
Fucking A, right on.
But the question I have is, obviously Clerks 3 is wicked emotional, so what was everybody's first reactions to reading the script, expecting the typical Kevin Smith film, let's go tell some dick jokes, to, oh fuck, I just got hit in the gut. What was that like?
There were some people that were like, what? I guess there ain't gonna be a Clerks fucking 4. They were, you know, the kids and I grew up together, right? So we've been doing shit together since we were in our 20s and stuff. And, you know, Clerks is me trying to be funny and clever, and all I'm interested in is making you laugh. By the time we get to Clerks 3, I've got 28, 29 years under my belt as a storyteller, and there's some shit I just can't do anymore. Not by virtue of the fact that I can't do it, I'm an old man, but like with Clerks, I could do shit like, hey man, snowballing. And people will be like, oh, that's fucking naughty. Where'd you hear that? And they pass it around and shit. I can't do that anymore because the internet exists. And before I can tell you about a thing, you've already heard about that fucking thing, and there's a subcategory on Pornhub for it. So that fucking sharp, you know, arrow in my quiver, that's gone at this point. Everybody knows that shit and stuff. I mean, think about it. Clerks, one of the most authentic, earnest movies ever made. It's a comedy, don't get me wrong, but fuck, it's dripping with authenticity, because the kid who made that movie was sitting like behind the camera, and he'd turn the camera off, and then he'd walk over to the register and ring somebody up, be like, thank you, come again, and then he'd go back to the fucking camera and continue making his movie about ringing people up at the register. He lived that fucking life. Boots on the ground retail, man. That's why like everybody who's ever had a job could identify with that fucking movie and stuff. If I were to truly sequelize Clerks today, I wouldn't have made Clerks 3. I wouldn't even made it at all. There's a guy who makes Clerks every fucking day, I think, on TikTok. He's the IKEA guy, got the mustache and shit. What's that fucker's name? Fucking brilliant. One of the funniest people I've ever seen in my life, and legit does Clerks better than I did Clerks in 1 minute. You know, I took 93, 1 minute, and he gets the fucking point, man. It's fantastic. So if I was gonna do it, I would do that, and I wouldn't do it because he's doing that. So I can't give you the boots on the ground retail experience anymore. I don't work in retail. Thanks to Clerks, I haven't worked in retail in fucking 29 years. I own a retail establishment. I've owned Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash for a quarter century at this point. So the ethos is completely different. You know, in fucking Clerks, Randall's like, man, this job would be great if we worked for the fucking customers. If I had an employee say, hey man, this job would be great if we worked for the fucking customers, I'd be like, you're fucking fired. So I can't make Clerks ever again. Like, that time in my life is over, and because we made it, fucking it gave me all of this and shit. And then you get to something like Clerks 2, and I love Clerks 2, it's one of my favorite films I've ever made, but it's complete fucking artifice. It's all made up. Think about it. Clerks is literally my life with everybody's names changed. And sure, nobody fucked a dead guy in the bathroom. I threw that in, you know, making a movie. But generally speaking, the formula for that movie is just take my life and change names. Clerks 2, none of that shit ever happened to me. I never fucking worked in fast food. There was never a threat I was gonna move to Florida ever in my fucking life. And I've never, I'm sad to say, been to a donkey show. So all of that is just Dante and Randall fan fiction. That's me going like, I got money, what would they do now? You know what I'm saying? Years later, I get to make a Clerks 3, and then I remember like, well shit, if you're gonna end the way you started. Go back to the original formula. And don't get me wrong, I love Clerks 2, I ain't shitting on it. But it's a movie. Clerks is a film. Clerks 2 is a movie. It's full of movie tropes and, you know, 3 acts and all that shit. Clerks 3 plays more like a film, at least to me, because it's the closest I've gotten to that formula again. I just took my life and changed names and shit. So Randall had my heart attack. Dante and Randall make the movie that I made when I worked at that convenience store, and Dante and Randall still work at that very convenience store that I used to work at. So the whole movie has more authenticity to it than the second one does, because it's still rooted in reality like the first one was. That to me is fucking like the idea of growth, right? Like, I started going, I want to make you laugh, but I can make you laugh still, but it's just like, it's interesting, don't get me wrong, and obviously if you've seen Clerks 3, the first fucking hour, 10 minutes is all about jokes. But the older I get, the more I want to share what I've fucking learned, like at the end of the day. Like it's one thing to be like, here's a fucking funny movie, man, you'll laugh your tits off or something like that. It's another thing to, in the last act of that movie, impart something useful to the audience. Like, give them something that when they leave the place, they're like, holy shit. Like, maybe I should be trying to do the thing that I wanted to do when I was a kid, because fucking time is running out and stuff like that. So the older one gets, the more you want to share what you've learned. Like, you know, it'd be easy to fucking just throw dirty words into a movie and be like Clerks. But at the end of the day, I had to figure out something a little bit differently if I was gonna bring it all home and shit. And the idea of bringing it home in some sort of like trilogy was nuts, because when we started making the movie, there was no thought of a trilogy. In the movie made by the kid who made Clerks, Dante gets fucking shot and killed at the end. Clearly I wasn't thinking about sequels. Thankfully we cut that ending though, because I got to make 2 of my favorite movies I ever made, Clerks 2 and Clerks 3. So yeah man, it's definitely, when I gave the script to everyone else, there was this, you know, we're all old, we're in our fucking, most of us are in our 50s, but there was this sense of like, oh, because it was funny the first time, we assumed it would just be funny the third time, and yes, it is funny, but like then you snuck something else in the third act. And that to me was like, yeah, we gotta do something different. If we make the same fucking movie, which is weird because it is about making the same fucking movie. Like, I knew we'd get in trouble anyway. People would be like, his head is so far up his ass, now he's just making a movie about how he made a movie once. But to me, it's not about that. We use Clerks as a framing device because it's my flick and it's cheap and easy to get a hold of and shit. But really, that's just a movie about the joy of fucking outlier art. About somebody outside of a system who's like, I think I could do a thing. And that's been the thing that I've championed my whole fucking life. Not only because I was that, but because to me, everybody in this room is that. Everybody is a content generator in this room. Everybody has a fascinating fucking story to tell. And Randall typifies that. He's just like, I'm someone from nowhere and fucking nobody cares about, but I've got a story to tell and he likes to tell it and shit. That's been my favorite, the leitmotif of my entire career. So imparting that in the movie, so that a bunch of people go watch that movie and go, oh shit, yeah, there's something I wanted to do. Not necessarily make a flick. Maybe it's knit a blanket. Maybe it's start a business. Maybe it's fucking like, who knows what it is. But we let life get in the way so often of a dream. You know, you're encouraged to dream when you're a child and make pretend and fucking play. And then at a certain point, they're like, grow up, asshole. And all that is supposed to be left behind. And why would you live like that? Oh my God, I saw my father live that way. He worked at the post office his whole fucking life. We were so proud he never went postal and killed anybody. But at the end of the day, like fucking like he you know, did the work and never talked about a dream. His whole generation, man. I remember picking his brain once. I said, Dad, what'd you dream about when you were a kid? He's like, what are you talking about? He got sus. Like, why are you asking me this? I was like, well, what did you do? I dreamed about being a movie maker. What did you dream about? And he was like, well, I dreamed about getting married and having kids. And I was like, oh shit, so your dream like came true pretty early and shit. Like, well done. But like for me, it's, you know, I raised my kid differently. Fucking, I wanted my kid to feel like anything was possible, except flight without a jetpack. But anything else, I'm like, fucking sky's the limit and shit like that. And you know, they didn't say that to us when we were kids. My father fucking loved me to death, don't get me wrong, but we were not encouraged as a generation. My generation, the 70s and 80s kids and shit. You know, and nowadays I tell my kid, like, fucking, you can do anything, reach for the fucking stars. My dad was like, see that mountain? Never climb it. Oh my God, you'll fall and hurt yourself. Read about better people who do those things. I was never encouraged to be the better person. My father took me to the movies all the fucking time. Never once said, you could do this. Because that wasn't a part of our fucking world. Now, like, I've raised my kid, like, you know, she's 23 now, and I'm all done and shit. She's an adult, she has her own fucking house. But when she was a fucking kid, she would watch iCarly all the time. And great show. And I remember saying to her at one point, I was like, you know, you could watch iCarly, or you can write an episode of iCarly. One of them's way more fucking fun. And my whole life, I've been just throwing that in her direction. You know, not telling her, be a fucking writer and shit, but just like, it's more fun making this shit up. Watching it is cool, don't get me wrong, man. It's great for getting stoned, but like, making this shit is fucking where it's at. And years later, how do I tell the story without telling the story? I got a job working for a toy company, and this isn't Mattel and Masters of the Universe. I did get a job working for a toy company making a cartoon. I got a job working for another toy company, writing a pilot for a live action version of a very popular 80s cartoon. And this popular 80s cartoon is, I don't look like the guy you would turn to for this cartoon. It's very female-centric. It's not the Powerpuff Girls, but it would be like the Powerpuff Girls. If I was, I'm gonna do the Powerpuff Girls, and people are like, no, you're not. We've seen those Jay and Silent Bob movies, fuck no. So I met with these cats, this one toy company, and they pitched me this toy that was famous when I was a kid, and they were like, we want to turn it into a thing. And I was like, I really don't have anything for this. I mean, I loved it when I was a kid, but I don't have anything. What else? What are the properties you guys have you're interested in? They went down a list, and they said this one fucking title, and my eyes lit up. And I was like, are you fucking serious? You guys have that? You want to do something with that? And they're like, why do you know this show? And I was like, I used to watch this fucking show all the time, man. Like, I know I'm not the target audience for it and shit, but like, it was the 80s. We didn't have cable, man. We just watched whatever the fuck was on. It was on. It had a superhero kind of angle to it and shit like that, dual identities. So I was like, I fucking watch this show all the time. And they were like, well, if you're interested in it, you could take it out into the world. We could do it. We could pitch it to Netflix, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, but you probably should have like a female co-writer. And I was like, why? And they were like, because every character's a girl in the fucking show and you're not. And I was like, oh yeah, optics, all right. I was like, let me think, I gotta find me a female writer. And I've worked with a few on Masters of the Universe, like Dia and stuff, so I was thinking of her. But then I was like, wait a second. I've been training a writer my whole life, and she lives downstairs. So I sauntered down to the kids' room when she was still living there. This was about 2 years ago. And I was like, a year and a half ago. And I was like, hey man, remember that this cartoon? And we got artwork for this cartoon that's been hanging in our house forever. It came from like a indie artist show. Very cool renditions of what the show was. And she's familiar with the show because she used to fucking watch it, you know, when she was a kid, watch it on YouTube and shit. I was like, you remember that fucking show? She said, yeah. I was like, I think I have a job writing a live action version of it. And she goes, but you're not a girl. And I was was like, well, I'm hung like one. Does that count? She's like, sometimes I hate our open relationship. I was like, listen, man, they're talking to me about bringing on a female co-writer, which makes absolute sense. But I know you're not a writer, by trade yet, but you want to write this thing with me? And she was just like, let me watch it again. She watched it and she was like, fuck yeah, I'd love to do that. So I hit the people up and shit, and I was like, can I write it with my kid? Does she count as a girl? And they were like, oh my God, that'd be so cute. And so they had us pitch, like, to Netflix and to fucking Hulu and shit like that. And like it was during the pandemic, so it was everyone on Zoom. We weren't in rooms or anything like that. And it's all these motherfuckers like just smiling from ear to ear because there was like a daddy-daughter pitch going on. And I think we got the job for cuteness alone. So we got the job, and so we've been writing together and shit. And this was the guy who was like, you could watch iCarly, or you could write iCarly. One of them was more fun and stuff. So here we are writing a script together. Now in this script, there are 2 iterations of characters. Part of it is set in the 80s, and part of it is set in the present. And, naturally, I'll take a shot at the 80s stuff because I lived in the 80s and whatnot. She'll take the present material, which involves characters that are younger and stuff. So, I fucking go very fast when I'm writing and shit. I'm in the zone. I just go. I was waiting for her pages and she didn't hand them over and shit. And I was like, who raised this lazy ass kid? And so one night I texted her. I was like, kiddo, I'm going to take a run at one of the current day scenes with the kids. And she's like, okay, have at it. And so I wrote the scene and I was very proud of it. I read it out loud. I was like, oh my God, this fucking rocks and shit. So I sent it to the kid and I was like, here, man, what do you think? And the kid calls me up. She don't even text back. She calls. You know what it takes to get a 20-something to dial a fucking phone? She fucking called. I saw it and I was like, well, I answered it. What's the matter? Are you okay? And she goes, Dad, no 20-somethings talk like this. I was like, what are you fucking talking about? I was like, not for nothing, but like, I am the king of 20-something dialogue. I mean, I did make Clerks. She goes, Dad, in the 90s. She's like, this doesn't sound like any human being on the planet. It sounds like you pretending to be a 14-year-old girl. And I was like, fucking Diablo Cody won an Oscar for making teenagers talk in a way they fucking don't in that movie. What was it called? Fucking Juno. So I was like, it's up to the writer. Writer fucking dictates what the audience will fucking take. And I start getting mouthy with the kid and shit. And she goes, Dad, don't be offended that you can't do the job anymore. And it fucking hurt, man. And then I was like, why did I tell her to fucking just watch iCarly her whole fucking life? But she was right, she took a pass at the fucking dialogue and I was like, oh, you're right, this sounds fucking better. I did know 20-something dialogue 30 years ago. Now I know fucking dad jokes and shit like that. I've evolved into a place where I need her help. So, fuck, you didn't even ask me about that. Why am I talking about my kid? Did you get the answer you were looking for? Well done, give it up for him, he got his answer. Story. How are you? What's your name?
My name's Tiffany.
Tiffany, give it up for Tiffany. She's next.
So I'm very glad you're still here with us, and you've been very inspirational with your walks and your hikes and with your walks with your wiener dog. It's been so much fun to watch.
Thank you.
Speaking of your daughter, you are a girl dad. What is your favorite role of hers and why?
That she's played as a professional?
Yoga hosers!
I mean, I think she's good at it, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I loved her work in Jane Silent Bob reboot. I thought she was fucking phenomenal. And she brought like such incredible fucking heart to it. Like, we were all making a cartoon and she was actually trying to make like a drama because she believes in the craft and shit. And I was like, oh, kiddo, do that on other people's movies, not here. But we got lucky, especially because, like, she's my kid, so there's a running theme in my life, from the people in my life, who say it's very hard to live in your shadow. There's some people that are just like, you know, fucking, you're bigger in life and it's very hard to fucking live in your shadow, compete with you, blah, blah, blah. I don't ever see anything as a competition. It's like, who the fuck wants to be me except me? But, you know, the kid is one of those people that's just like, I love you to death, but like, you have cursed me by being fucking Kevin Smith's kid. How am I fucking supposed to function in this world without people expecting something from me because of the entire fucking life that you've lived and blah, blah, blah. So, it was very important to her to act in anything other than a Kevin Smith movie. Like, she knew she would get that and shit because like, I'm like, oh, I think you're great, kiddo. But she was like, oh my God, I just gotta get cast in something else. And so she told me one day, she's like, Dad, I'm auditioning for a movie. And I was like, oh great, you do that a lot. What's this one? And she's going, it's a movie that a lot of people have been talking about, and I want this one so bad. I'm gonna try to manifest it and shit. She believes in like Wiccan and shit like that. She's like, I'm gonna fucking burn candles. I was like, that'll fucking help. Take it from an old school Catholic. Burning candles is fucking nothing. So, you know, I was like, what's the movie? And she goes, it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was like, oh, fucking, I said, kiddo, are you fucking nuts, man? I mean, I know I tell you, like, dream big and shit, but dream smaller in this case. I was like, fucking everyone wants to be in that movie. Fuck, I saw Jane Fonda just said she wants to be in that movie. Fuck, I want to be in that movie. It'd be great for my brand and shit. I was like, I know, like, fucking, you know, you got a dream, but, like, just manage your expectations, man. Maybe don't dream quite so big. It's nothing wrong with managing your expectations. Your mother did it. She didn't want to marry me. But she's like, he'll do, and she managed her expectations. We've been very happy for like 20 years, so fucking please, manage your expectations and shit. And goddamn if she didn't go in and get the fucking part, man. And she came home and she was just like, I managed my expectations into getting the role, motherfucker. So I was like, good for you. And it was good for her, but it was way better for me, because holy shit, if she didn't get that fucking part, it would have been hell on earth around that fucking house. My wife had come to me at one point, and she was like, you know Quentin? I was like, yeah. She's like, why don't you make a call? I was like, fuck no. I was like, I ain't doing it. I don't play that fucking game. Everyone earns in this house. You want something? Fucking earn it. I ain't making no fucking call, because I don't want Quentin calling me one day and going like, fucking stick my kid in. Well, I would. That'd be kind of cool. But fucking, I ain't gonna presume upon our fucking friendship like that. That's fucking no way. If she wants it, she got to do it herself and shit. No, I'm not making no fucking call. So she got it and shit. And fucking, it was delightful. So she went off to make the movie, and it was great for me because like every day she'd come home, I was like, tell me about it. Who'd you meet and shit? She was like, oh, just Brad. I'm like, Brad fucking Pitt. I was like, don't you call him Brad. You know? She met Margot, well, she re-met Margot Robbie, how do you say it? Robbie. She was the only two ways to go with it. I get it wrong every fucking time. It's like putting in a USB cord. It's just fucking... So we met her at the Suicide Squad premiere years ago. I took the kid, and fucking like at one point, like everyone that worked at Warner Brothers knew that like I have a Harley Quinn and she wanted to meet Harley Quinn and shit, and so they made it happen. And it was adorable, man. Fucking like I took pictures of the kids like crying and shit. Margot was real sweet and shit. So years later, the kid is on the set of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and so is fucking Margot. And Harley walks into the trailer, and Margot's coming out of the trailer, and she goes, oh, it's the real Harley Quinn. And I was like, fucking class, man. That's fucking class. The kid was just like, oh my God. So she had a blast, man. It was like her favorite movie experience, and like her part was tiny and shit, but like she earned it herself. She legit working with fucking like famous people and fucking real filmmakers and shit. So when we got her on Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, man, it was like we got a kid coming to our set with fucking confidence. So it wasn't like her coming to the set and being like, my fucking dad wrote this part for me. She came to the set like, I just came from a real director's set. You know? And because of that, she fucking slayed, man. Her and Jay, I thought, were tremendous together. At one point, she was acting, and Jay started fucking bawling his eyes out. And I was like, good acting. He was like, I'm fucking not acting. And he ran off and shit. She disaffected him. So I think Reboot is my favorite for obvious reasons and stuff. Her playing Jay's daughter is fucked up and weird and shit, and will eventually lead to the, you know, one day we're gonna make a third Jay and Silent Bob movie, because now we're more than halfway to a trilogy. So I feel like one more time before I leave this world, and we know when it's gonna be, it's in about 10 fucking years. Right now, Logan, which is Jay's daughter, is 7 years old. Cute as a fucking button. Looks like fucking girl Jay. In Jay and Silent Bob reboot, my daughter, Harley, played Jay's daughter in the movie. So in the third Jay and Silent Bob movie, Harley will play Logan's mother, and Jay will be Logan's grandfather. Yeah. Isn't that fucking weird? It's gonna require him to act finally, like an old man. So, you know, it's me, him, and a 17-year-old Logan, just how, you know, I got to make a movie with him and my kid and shit. He'll get his turn with his kid and stuff, and so me, him, and a 17 or 18-year-old Logan, probably 18, so we can fucking shoot after hours and shit. We'll get in the car and fucking go back to Hollywood to stop another movie from happening, and fucking a bunch of critics will be like, I can't believe he did this 3 fucking times. So, hands down, I would say it's a reboot. But in terms of the shit that I didn't work on, that she's done, you know, Cruel Summer, I thought she was really great. I was enjoying watching that show. First I started watching it because she was my kid, and then I was like, oh shit, I'm into the mystery and whatnot. And then I would quiz her all the time and ask her shit. I'm like, what's going on? And tell her, she's like, I'm not gonna spoil it. And I was like, you can't fucking please spoil it. You know? So anyway, there's my answer. Thank you, pleasure. What's your name, Captain?
My name's Nick.
What is it?
Nick.
Nick?
Yeah, Nick.
Everyone give it up for Nick, he's next.
First off, I just want to thank you for Clerks 3 and how wonderful that film was.
You went? You saw it?
Oh, yes, I did.
You did?
I loved it. I cried.
Did you?
I did.
I love that. I know that's like, isn't it nice to leave a Kevin Smith movie and cry because it was good for once? Like, thank you for that.
So my question is, before you started production, are there any filmmakers or films that you turn to for inspiration?
Yes. You know, there's a phrase, what does the chef eat? And in this case, if I'm considered the chef, what do I eat? Like, what do I ingest that makes me want to make some fucking art? This is going to sound like I'm playing to the room, but this is absolutely fucking true. The thing that feeds me, and it doesn't show up in my work, except it gets referenced or whatever and shit, but it's not like I make movies like that because I watch this shit. But the shit that feeds me now the most for the last 10 years are Marvel movies. I love Marvel movies. They're so my fucking jam. It's almost like I get to relive my childhood again. I think that's kind of the point. That's why a lot of adults like them and shit. But in my case, I read all these stories when I was a kid. So I know all this shit like the back of my hand. And I loved it when I was a kid, turning page after page, you know, fucking like I love comic book stories and I love superheroes, it's obvious. I've been talking about them for like 30 years because at the root of every superhero story is my favorite fucking morality tale. The worst thing in the world is happening and everybody is rightfully running away from it in terror, screaming. And then there's one person, very colorfully dressed, heading fucking straight toward it. That's how I want to live my life, man. Like, I don't want to run from everything. I want to run straight fucking toward the threat, you know, dressed like an asshole. So far, so fucking good. So, I love telling stories like that, or I love reading stories like that, but I don't tell stories like that. Like, just because I fucking ingest and repeat watch and fucking savor the flavor of every single fucking Marvel movie, with the exception of maybe the Eternals, that was a little slow. But it looked great, it looked fucking beautiful, but it was just a little bit slow. But ingesting all that shit, you would imagine like, oh, he must want to make one of those movies. Not at all. No interest. I love being a spectator. Because of my job, I get to sometimes fuck with and interact with things that I'm a fan of. Case in point, like years ago, I was a fan of Degrassi, Junior High and Degrassi High, Degrassi Next Generation. And one day I just, I was like, I want to be on the show. And I called up, Linda Schuyler, who created the creator of the show, and was like, hey man, this is Kevin Smith. I'm like, I love Degrassi, and I love what you're doing Next Generation. I can see that Joey and Caitlin are headed toward a marriage and shit, and I would kill or die to write and direct those episodes. And Linda Schuyler goes, I'm sorry, who are you? And I was like, I made Clerks and Mallrats chasing him. She goes, oh, Mallrats, there's a Degrassi jacket in Mallrats. I was like, there is, I'm a big fucking fan and shit. And she goes, well, I would love to have you write and direct the episodes, Kevin, but our show is financed primarily by the Canadian government. So all the key roles have to be filled by Canadians. So as much as I'd like you to write and direct an episode of our show, you can't because you're not Canadian. And this is the first time anyone's ever told me no for that very specific reason. You know, and I'm used to saying, like, we won't take no for an answer. You have to be if you're a fucking artist and shit. But, like, you have to take that no, because I'm like, I'm not Canadian. Like, what can I fucking do? She had me dead to rights and shit like that. So I was like, oh, man. And she goes, but if you want to be on the show, like, you know, you can be on the show. And I was like, really? Can I come up with a storyline? She goes, like, I guess. And I was like, great. And I hung up and I wrote like an 8-page storyline for what my character's arc could be. I was going to play myself and I was getting in the middle of fucking Joey and Caitlin's romance and shit, give kids at Degrassi advice and shit. And then I faxed it to her, because that's how long ago this was. And waited to hear from it and never heard back. 5 months, never heard anything. I assumed that fucking she got the fax and just went around the office going like, oh my God, do you know fucking Silent Bob? Read what he wants to do on our show. But then 5 months later, Linda called me up and she was like, Kevin, if we're gonna do this thing, you gotta get down here because we start rehearsals for your episodes very soon. I was like, my episodes? She was like, yeah. She's like, I scripted. I took your storyline, I gave it to Aaron, and Aaron came up with 2 scripts. And I was like, what the fuck? Are we really doing this? And she was like, yeah, so fuck writing and directing. That would have been work, right? Like, I would actually have to do some work. They let me just fucking be in the fucking thing and shit. Oh my God, it was amazing. Law and Order. I was a big Law and Order fan when the kid was growing up, man. She was a baby and shit. And A&E would run Law and Order on repeats. This was before the Law and Order renaissance where fucking suddenly Dick Wolf made 19 Law and Orders and shit. This is when there was just one good old Law and Order and they would run reruns every day on A&E. And so I'd come home from the office and me and, you know, Jen was a nurse and a kid and whatnot. I'd come home from the office and we'd watch like 2 hours of Law and Order every day. It was adorable because it has that theme music, boom, 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 boom. The kid dialed in on it. So she's a little like an infant toddler bombing around and stuff, crawling. And as soon as that music started, boom, 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 she would stop whatever she was doing. She would go like this. I went home just to watch that shit, man. It was amazing. So I fell in love with the show and I called my agent one day and I was like, hey man, Law and Order shoots like over in fucking New York, man. I'm in New Jersey, it's 45 minutes away. Can I be on Law and Order? And he goes, I guess, I'll fucking ask him and shit. He goes, what, you want to be the bad guy? And I was like, oh fuck no, that's too much responsibility. I want to be the guy that leads him to the guy, that leads him to the guy, that leads him to the guy. He goes, you want to be a link in the chain? And I was like, fuck yeah. He's like, this should be easy. And it was. And he's like, come on over, we'll shoot, man. They gave me script pages and shit to memorize, and I played a guy, worked at a beer dispensary and shit like that, who knew something about fucking the case and shit. And so, it was like Jerry Orbach and fucking Jesse Green were there. Those are the 2 detectives. And, I'm a writer, so I was like, I'm gonna come up with better dialogue than this. It's fucking, this sounds very pale. I'm gonna Kevin Smith this shit, man. And they're gonna be so happy. We did the first take and I made up all my own dialogue and shit. And after that, we did a full take. Constantine Macris, he was the director, Gus. He goes, cut! And he goes over, he goes, Kevin, can I talk to you for a second? He goes, you made up a lot of dialogue. I was like, oh, it was great, right? And he goes, it's not, don't fucking do that here. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, this ain't a Kevin Smith movie. He's going, we got 3 lawyers sitting over there pissed as hell that you didn't say the words that they wrote. And I was like, really? Lawyers are mad at me? Good. But then I did it their way and shit. So I've been able to get involved with shit that like I like. And so conceivably, if I applied myself, maybe I could be in a fucking, or be involved with a Marvel thing. But I don't want that. Like, I want to appreciate it. I just want to be somebody that like sits in the audience like y'all, man, and fucking enjoys it. Like, not like, oh, I'm on the other side and I've seen it and maybe I'll lose my appreciation for it because suddenly I've had access to it. And, maybe it was hard, maybe it's cop-out, and I'm like, fuck all this, and I never watch Marvel movies again. Who the fuck would I be? My wife would be happy, but fucking who the fuck would I be? So, that's the stuff that kind of feeds me. That's the stuff that like makes me want to go create. And oddly, it doesn't make me want to go create superhero shit. It makes me want to write like Clerks 3. When I see people like performing at their absolute best, excellence inspires me. And I think those movies are fucking excellent. There's some people like, they're fucking cookie cutter machine. They're fucking put together on an assembly line. So is a fucking Maserati, and it's a beautiful fucking car. So at the end of the day, like, I love those movies for what they are, and not for what they, other people think they should be or something like that. I love exactly what they are. No interest in ever making one whatsoever. I need that to be my fuel that makes me dream and makes me dream bigger and makes me want to go do my shit, even though it doesn't look like their shit at all. Yes, I'll reference it galore and shit because my characters trade in the same kind of passions that I do, right? But I don't ever want to make one of those. I'm happy to just watch that, man. I'm happy to have, like, I got James Gunn's number, right? So every once in a while I'm watching the thing, I'm like, oh, that fucking trailer's beautiful. I wish I could fucking just tell the filmmaker. I was like, oh, I can, I have his number. And so I can fucking text James Gunn and be like, you fucking rock, man. Everything you do is fucking righteous and shit like that. You're doing the Lord's work. You fucking rule. And he's always like, God, Kevin, you're so complimentary and shit. But it's true, that's how I feel, man. But it's not like me going, get me a job in that world. Dave Klein, who is the, shot Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, later on Clerks too. He's become the Mandalorian DP. He was supposed to shoot Clerks 3, and then one day he called me and goes, Kev, they just offered me Mandalorian Season 2. And I was like, and? He goes, I want to shoot Clerks 3. And I was like, Dave, you have to shoot the Mandalorian. He goes, but it's Clerks 3. I said, yes, Dave, it's Clerks 3. Shoot the fucking Mandalorian, man. And so Dave was like, I'm gonna get you a job, man. I'm gonna get tight with these fools. I'm gonna get you one of those jobs, man. You're gonna direct a Star Wars. I'm gonna shoot it. And I was like, honestly, you're very sweet, but I don't want that. Like, I like watching that show. I don't need to fucking work on it and then suddenly be like, this show fucking sucks. That guy was mean to me, and now I'll never watch Mandalorian, It's too precious to me and shit. And it's like, why do I need to do it? They got talented people to do that shit. This is what I learned when I was directing CW shows. Like when I did Flash and Supergirl. I love doing it, but it's ridiculous that they pay somebody to go action and cut. Because they have a bunch of people that make that fucking show every week. And the director is the only element that changes. The director every week is a different person and shit. And they usually bomb up, and most of them don't even fucking know the show. There was one guy who came up to fucking do an episode of The Flash, and he was like, all right, man, we're gonna do the Flame. Where is he? Where's the Flame at? And they're like, the Flash? Yeah, whatever the fuck. Like, just completely unfamiliar with the material and stuff. I was achingly familiar with the material, but at the end of the day, I felt superfluous to the process. I felt like a third nipple. I was just like, why am I here? Like, I'm here as a fan, which is great, but like, you really don't have to pay me $25,000 to $30,000 for 9 days of work to say action and cut. Pick anyone on this fucking set. They make this show every fucking week. They know better than me. And it's not like I can direct the actors. I'm not gonna go up to Melissa Benoist and be like, let me tell you how to play fucking Supergirl. She's been doing it forever. She does it in her fucking sleep and shit like that. So I realized that they don't need people like me in that world. I like being there, I'm a fan and shit. But really, they should get people with vision. Young people have vision. People that want to fucking tell, a very story that's full of action and fucking visual shit that I don't really do. Like I do fucking people talking about superheroes. I don't like to do superheroes, but I love watching that shit. That's my passion. That's my heart, man. So that's how we get to like Clerks and shit like that. Good. Well done. I think the reason that nobody else is at the mic is because I'm done. Is that it? I see the clock says 0.00. Am I meant to finish? That was so short. Listen, I'm sure somebody in charge will tell me something. Until then, I can't go without a question though. So somebody fucking pop up. Go ahead, kids. Look at you, rogue renegades, man, jumping up to the mic. Security gonna tackle you any second, man. What's your name?
My name's Lauren.
Lauren, everyone give up for Lauren. She's, what can I do you for, Lauren?
So my hometown is Eden Prairie, Minnesota, where Mallrats was filmed.
Yeah, you're from the Prairie, man.
From Eden Prairie.
EP Mall.
My brother works at the Eden Prairie Mall, and he would like to know if you still remember the Great Mandarin Restaurant and what your favorite part of making that movie was.
My favorite, I do remember the Great Mandarin Restaurant. My favorite part of making Mallrats was scoring Jason Mewes because the studio didn't want Jason Mewes to be in it. And I'm like, but Jay is Jay. Jay is based on Jay. They're like, he's not a real actor. And I was like, but he was in Clerks. Like, that's not a real movie. So they made us audition people for Jay, in addition to Jay. Jay had to come in and audition as himself and be like Snoochie Boochies and shit like that. There were two other very high contenders for the role, man, that the studio really liked. One was Seth Green, and the other was Breckin Meyer, the two boys that went on to work on fucking Robot Chicken and shit. And so they would come in for the auditions, because we did multiple rounds, and Seth was like adorable. I didn't know him personally, but I knew his work from like movies I had seen before I was in the business and shit, when he was a kid. And he came in, he goes, bro, I don't want this part. The guy who played it is genius. Why isn't he playing it? And I was like, I know, man. Look, I hate to say this, I don't want you to have this part. He's like, why are we wasting each other's time? And I was like, because the studio wants you to play the part, man. He goes, I don't want to take it away from that guy. And I was like, I know, we established this. Breckin, he was the other guy who was like, I'll totally take that fucking part. He's like, what do I gotta say? Snoochie Boochie's done. So Jay came in and auditioned as well, and the studio begrudgingly let him be involved in the runoff. They had a kind of round robin of like 3 actors per each role that would come in and audition all day long, and one by one they get knocked off and stuff like that until the cast was there. So at the end of the day, Mewes impressed the studio enough where I was like, look, I love Breckin and Seth, but like, Jay's my guy. He's gotta be the fucking part. Like, it's based on him. And the studio was like, he was very funny today, but he's still not a professional. So we're gonna let you take him to Minnesota with you and he can rehearse. We're not gonna pay him for rehearsals, and we're not gonna put him up. He can stay on your floor, which he did. But on the first day of shooting, if we don't like the dailies, we're firing him and we're bringing in Seth Green. So I was like, okay. And so I impressed upon Jay the whole time, like, fucking dude, they're watching hardcore, and they might replace you if you don't fucking, like, you gotta give it your all, you can't be shy. In fucking, when we were making Clerks, he wouldn't, like, this guy would pull his dick out in front of you if you've known him 3 minutes. I have a camera on, I'm like, dance. He's like, I ain't dancing in front of all these fucking people. And I'm like, what the fuck? So, I was like, you can't be shy guy. Fucking, you gotta go for it, man. You gotta fucking be Jay right out the gate. There's no time for fucking me to lead a horse to water and shit like that. You gotta be strong because they want to replace you. And so we shot, the first day of shit was him going, do it, Doug. So we shot all the backstage stuff with him and Trish the Dish. And sent the daily, I thought it was pretty good. We sent the dailies to Los Angeles, and it was FedEx in those days. You couldn't just stream it or something like that. So we sent tapes, and then we had to wait to find out. So it was like 3 days, and everyone was sitting there like on pins and needles with clenched assholes and shit. And then Jay was like making deals with me. He's like, well, look, even if they don't let me be Jay, can I work on the movie? Mm-hmm. And I was like, doing what? He was like, crafty. And I was like, you want to give out the food and shit? He's like, well, I just want to hang out, man. Like, fucking seems fun. And I was like, let's aim for fucking what you should be doing in this movie. Playing fucking Jay. And we finally heard back from the studio, and they were like, we hate to admit it, but he's very funny, so go forward with him. And that, I finally unclenched my asshole that day. And we went to work, man, and it was great. It could have changed the course of my life. Like, if Universal was like, Jay can't be Jay, and it becomes Seth Green and shit like that, like, do we even ever get to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Or am I on my 6th Jay and Silent Bob movie at this point because Seth is so much more lovable or something like that? Like, we'll never fucking know. Whenever I bring it up to Jay, he's like, don't talk about that shit. So my favorite movie working on that movie was Mallrats. Favorite moment working on Mallrats was the day that fucking they finally approved Jay, and it was about a week and change into the movie. I could relax and kind of just go to town and stuff. So that was that. All right, kids. As much as I would love to talk, we have to shut the building down for the evening. So before we go, I just want to ask you if you guys enjoyed yourself at FanX so far. I can't thank you enough for coming out. can't thank you enough for going to check out Clerks 3. For the ones that did, thank you so much, kids.
Actually, Kevin, we want to ask you, are you enjoying your time here at FanX?
I have enjoyed my time very much. Everyone's been so fucking lovely, man. Thank you for welcoming me and my friends, kids.